Welcome back to Preps Today with John Millea. John and I were just talking about things getting fixed and how that's not always the smoothest process. So we'll get into that a little bit of our personal lives. We'll talk about turf. We'll talk about the Olympic notes. We'll have John's most valuable teammate. Now we're getting back into gear here. This is Preps Today with John Millea. John covers prep sports and activities all over the state. He drives all over the state. If you're new to the show, he does incredible work. You can read his written work at mshsl.org at John's Journal. You can hear his spoken word artistry here at talknorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Service Studios. We request if you like the show, if you like any other show at the network, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's easy. Tons of pro sports and college sports coverage. 2 high school shows right now, John Millea's show and Randy Shaver's new high school football show, which we're very excited about. I know John and Randy. I mean, John and I had Randy on this show as a guest one time in the past. Randy's just loves high school football, so he's a great addition to our network. We are sponsored by Pizza Barn in Princeton. All right, John, what broke down on you?
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned this last week, Jim. Our house that we live in the suburbs, my wife and I, where we raised 3 kids, it's 28 years old. And, the time comes when certain things break down. I'm old enough. I know that body parts break down, but things have to be replaced. So that's the phase my wife and I are in. Last year, we replaced our water heater, which was starting to go. And this is a big summer in this regard in our house. A few weeks ago, our central air started to not behave as we wished it would. And we had a service guy come out, declared it dead. So our furnace is the same age, original to the house, 28 years old. So we're going to have the AC and our furnace replaced this week. This could be a real adventure. But I mention this because it kind of ties in with this spectacular weather we're having as high school sports are now underway. I mean, when we realized we're going to be without an air conditioner, at first we didn't know for how long, but we were thinking, we might have to do some hotel work here and just to get out of the heat. But the weather's been absolutely fantastic. We've had windows open the whole way. It's a little warmer today. We're talking on Tuesday. My wife's got the house shut up. It's very comfortable. Could be in the mid 90s and humid every day. This is August in Minnesota. We know what that's like. So, and the state fair is coming up. We know that, my wife and I aren't regulars at the state fair, but if there's a really beautiful day in the middle of the week, we might go. And sometimes, it's just brutally hot. So we're cautiously optimistic that we can get this thing done, have air conditioning. And we were a little hesitant on the furnace because it's still working. But our thinking was, well, we got to get a new air conditioner. We have to have central air. That's not a question. But if we don't replace the furnace at the same time, do we want the furnace to go out in, say, February? Then you're really in trouble. And those 2 systems tie together. It's smart to do them both, we learned. And so let's cross our fingers. Everything goes well. And we have working air conditioning. And then I don't really care about the weather. But I do, because as I said, high school sports are underway. And we'll talk about that here in the next topic. But it's just, it's phenomenal weather. And I don't like to sweat much. I'm not good in the heat. I did live in Phoenix for 6 years, did not do well in the summer. And thank goodness, while we haven't had an air conditioner here for, 10 days, 2 weeks, we haven't needed air conditioning. So that's a good sign, I think.
That is a very good sign. Yes, sir. I'm dealing with windshield issues myself, but these are, these are first world problems. Everything will be fine. The cool thing is we're now getting to the point of the year as this weather cool. The cool weather will be very good for the opening of fall sports, especially football practice.
It sure will. And I want to, speaking of automobiles, I want to just give a shout out to Maplewood Toyota and Toyota. I was in there today for the John's Journal Camry. This is the 4th in a series of Camrys that Toyota has provided to me and the high school league at no charge. So it was just time. I was due for a oil change and tire rotation, and they're phenomenal in there. They do it for free. They won't do it free for everybody, but they do it for these cars. So great service there. I take my bag and I get some work done. I set up there and very efficient today. They wash it. They toss me the keys. Here you go, buddy. And I'm ready to get driving around the state, which brings us to the segment I entitled Back in the Saddle. We are back in the saddle of fall sports. This is the first week of practice. And as we got close to the first week, I was on vacation last week, and there are a lot of times when I'm technically on vacation, but I'm making phone calls. I'm working on this or that. I'm planning ahead. I held off last week. I didn't really think about this till Sunday. How do I tackle day one? It comes around every year, first day of practice for fall sports. There's a lot of ways to do that. Some years I went to a midnight madness practice, 1 minute after midnight on Monday morning. I've been to football and soccer for those. Some years I visited one school and just go hang out with every team that's practicing, talk to people. Some years I focused on one team or one coach on day one, and I didn't really want to do something I've done before. So I think it worked out okay. My angle was on Monday, the first day, I didn't get in my car. I didn't leave the house. Early in the morning, I texted a bunch of coaches and athletic directors with the same message. I'd love to chat with you at some point today. I want to ask about day one, how it went, how you're feeling, everything, the weather. And most of these folks were people I've known for years. Not all of them did I know before, but I got my hands on a couple numbers. And kind of from around the state, Verndale, St. Charles, Pequot Lakes, Big Lake, Rochester, Mayo, Leroy Ostrander, South St. Paul. If anybody wants to read that, go to John's Journal at mshsl.org. You can see the result. I think I was just trying to take the temperature of day one. I wrote about scenes that people described to me, funny, weird things that happened on Monday, things people laughed about, the excitement in the air. One of the people I talked to was Mike Malin. He's the football coach at Verndale, a 9-man football. The winningest coach in Minnesota football history. This is his 55th year. The guy has no plans to retire. Mike doesn't always say a lot. He's kind of a soft-spoken guy, but I know him well enough that we always have nice chats. I asked him what's different from years ago, and he started laughing. For the first 16 years he coached at Verndale, he had one assistant coach, which was pretty standard at small schools for a long time. This year, now he's got 5 assistants. And he said, geez, I don't know what to do with 5 assistants. I just stand around, which you look at a big time school or a college program where there's, 15 assistant coaches or whatever. But that was funny. It's funny to hear him joke about that. And a really interesting story this year. It's a new co-op team with kids from Leroy Ostrander and Lyle Pacelli schools down in the Rochester area. Lyle is a public school in the town of the same name. Pacelli is a private school in Austin, which isn't far down the road. And they've combined schools for teams and a whole bunch of sports for a long time. But they didn't have enough kids last year to play varsity football. So they've got a new agreement. Leroy Ostrander, Lyle, and Pacelli, they're all together this year. Again, 9-player football. And it's really something. It's part of the reason I love small town football. In 2021, Leroy Ostrander won the 9-player state championship with a roster of 17 kids, and they were state champs. So this year they're going to have, I think, close to 40. They should be a good team. And another note, a person I enjoyed talking to, the new athletic director at Rochester Mayo, Jeff Whitney, had held that job for 33 years, super respected guy. And their athletic trainer, Dan Christopher, he became the AD, but he's a lot more than an athletic trainer. He's got advanced degrees in administration and education. He was hired as AD. That was a new one on me. He'd been the athletic trainer there for 13 years. That's a new situation, the trainer becoming the AD. But we had a nice chat. And this quote from Dan really stands out to me about day one. He said, quote, "I think the most important part of it and most fun with all of it is the energy around campus. At the beginning of the season, there's a lot of energy. Everybody's ready to go. It should be a fun year." And I agree with that. It should be a fun year. I'm looking forward to it. As I've said over and over, I'm going to retire next summer, and I'm really pumped about this upcoming school year.
Yes, we're going to be sad to lose you, but I'm looking forward to everything you're going to do in the next calendar year. All right. What do you want to get to next? Or actually, let's take a moment here and thank Pizza Barn, and then we'll get on to the rest of the show.
Let's do that. Let's talk about Pizza Barn up in Princeton. Phenomenal place. There's great things happening there all the time. It's easy to find if you're going north or south on 169. Take the exit into downtown Princeton. The pizza of the month for August is the Alabama Slammer. It's a joint venture with OMC Smokehouse in Duluth. The Pizza Barn uses OMC's recipe for Alabama white sauce as the base. I'm a big white sauce pizza guy. I think that's phenomenal. This has got to be even better than any I've had before. They add shredded braised chicken thighs, mozzarella. It's baked to perfection. This is another busy week for the Pizza Barn food trucks. They'll be at Fairview and Maple Grove on Thursday, Princeton Speedway on Friday, at a youth soccer tournament in Zimmerman on Saturday, as well as at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum in Chanhassen on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they'll go to Wayzata for the Blue Water Theater's annual block party. Go out and enjoy that great pizza. And as we say every week, thanks to Jody Stay and her crew at the Pizza Barn. They'll take great care of you. They've sponsored our podcast almost from the get-go, and we can't thank them enough.
Yes, thank you, Jody. We do appreciate it. Again, we're coming to the Aquarius Home Services Studios. All right, John, want to get to turf talk?
Yeah, this is an interesting things have been happening on Twitter. I posted, as the week started, I declared myself a senior in the class of 2025. Since this is my end here, which resulted in a lot of shenanigans and fun. I laughed a lot at the replies, but a guy I know in Marshall named Josh Van Kloppenberg, he asked me after I said that if I would be visiting Canby this year, and he posted a photo of their brand new turf field and their new track, something they haven't had. Looks phenomenal. If I can get to Canby, I will. And then I found out that War Road is putting in a turf field. And then I posted this note on Twitter or X or Twix, whatever you want to call it. My note said, the explosion of artificial turf fields at Minnesota high schools, especially small schools, over the past 20 years is absolutely remarkable. And it is. It's phenomenal. And that was followed by a question from somebody else on social media asking, when did this start and which school had the first turf field? I wrote about this a couple years ago, I think, kind of the history of it. And it was Wayzata, and I believe in 2001 that had the first turf field. And I think Wayzata High School now has 5 turf fields because these big schools, they have turf in their stadiums. And then they have practice fields and baseball and softball, all kinds of turf. And I don't have an official count on how many high schools in Minnesota have turf fields, but it's got to be around 125. 2-3 years ago, I had kind of an official count. It was over 100, and more of them come online every year. So it's phenomenal. That's not a sexy story. It's hard to, but I've written about that over the years, but it's phenomenal. None of us grew up with turf. Kids today certainly do, but it's especially in those tiny schools, that may have 100 or 120 kids in the high school, how they do the financing and how creative they are to do that. It's just outstanding.
Yes, no doubt about it. All right, let's get to a topic you and I have had a lot of fun chatting about the last few weeks. The Olympics were spectacular. Let's wrap up the Olympic experience here.
You bet. I said to my wife the other day, I said, okay, the next Summer Olympics are in LA in 4 years. I said, I want to go.
Oh, yeah.
I want to watch track. Yes. So that's on our wish list. I said, one of us said, okay, if we win the lottery, let's buy a centrally located condo in Los Angeles. The Coliseum is where the track's going to be. And we'll just Airbnb it till the Olympics come up. We'll make enough money to pay all of our expenses. So that's kind of our dream here 4 years from now. So I don't think the chances are likely that any of that's going to happen, but we're going to have an opportunity without needing a passport to go to the Olympics. But so during the Olympics, on one of the last days of the track and field, I was watching the women's pole vault, and it's phenomenal. You know, Mondo Duplantis, the male who's an American, but he competes for Sweden. You know, he breaks his own world record basically every time he comes down the runway. But so I watched him, and then I was watching the women, and this thought struck me. And that doesn't happen often when a new thought strikes me. But I posted a note on Twitter that said, theory, pole vaulting is the most technical, most precise, most difficult single event in the entire sporting universe. And I haven't been convinced otherwise yet. And so somebody backed me up, Shane Drahota, a friend of mine from Minnesota State Mankato. He replied with this note. He said, quote, at our Hall of Fame banquet this past fall, a former pole vaulter was one of our inductees, and she had the most mind-blowing way of viewing the sport. She said it's a sport that only ends when everyone fails. The key is to be the last person to fail. And that's it. If you've ever watched pole vaulting, the pole starts out relatively low. Everybody tries to clear it. Those who don't, you get 3 tries, you're done. They move the bar up and it just keeps going till basically one person makes a height and nobody else does. But it's a sport that you be the last one to fail and you're going to win. And we also talked about a whole bunch of Minnesotans involved. Joe Fonbala, famous Hopkins grad who owns high school state records in Minnesota at the 100 and 200. He made it to the finals of the Olympics in the 200, finished 7th. Good to see a kid from Hopkins High School on that big stage. And also, if you listened on NBC, if you watch track and field on NBC, or you watch track and field on Peacock, and I did both, and it was phenomenal. We had 2 Minnesota voices describing the distance races. Kara Goucher on NBC, Carrie Tollefson on Peacock. Boy, that was fun. You know, clearly we're Minnesotans. We love our own kind, and we like to brag about Minnesotans. But those 2 are, you know, veteran high-level runners, 2 Olympians, and just did a great job, I thought. So congrats to Kara and Carrie.
Yeah, I've been lucky to do stories on both of them. That was really cool to see. And then you had Mr. Roethlisberger doing the gymnastics stuff. Minnesotans
That's
all
right.
over the place.
We own the Olympics.
No doubt. Yeah, we do. We do. It was great stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really hope you do get to go to the Los Angeles Olympics. I think first of all, the American track team was phenomenal in this Olympics, and it's very promising for LA. But to watch the greatest runners in the world run in the LA Coliseum will be a life event.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's cross our fingers.
Yes.
And keep buying lottery tickets.
Yes, no doubt. Let's get to John's most valuable teammate.
Yeah, this program at the Minnesota State High School League is back, honoring a great teammate. The first one of the year is Anna Mayer. She's a junior at Visitation who's heavily involved in robotics. The team there is called the Robettes. She's a team captain this year. In previous years, she served as the team's build lead, the robot driver, and pit presenting lead. It's a very technical activity, but a lot of different things go into it. In these roles, Anna was responsible for managing the design and construction of the robot, ensuring schedules were met. She drove the robot, and she helped prepare the team to talk with judges. That's part of the experience. And that ultimately led to the team receiving what's called the Gracious Professionalism Award. That's about the highest honor in high school robotics. So congrats to Anna of Visitation on being a most valuable teammate. Really looking forward to hearing more about these kids who win this award as the year goes on.
Yes, no doubt. Looking forward to this entire year, listening to you tell us these great stories from around the state. Thanks to John. Thanks, as always, to Jody Stay and Pizza Barn in Princeton. Not that far out of the metro. If you're ever in the neighborhood, make sure you drop by and tell them we sent you. You will have great food, great pizza, great service with great people. Thanks to our producers, Davide Rosso and Alex Haugen at TalkNorth.com. Thanks to everyone who listens. And, check out the Randy Shaver Show. I think you'll enjoy it.